Hello and welcome and namaste from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up over the next 1 hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi begins the second day of his visit to Japan. He's to travel from Tokyo to Sendai on a bullet train with Prime Minister Ishiba. Tokyo summit marks deepening India-Japan ties with joint declarations on defense, technology and sustainability. Trump's trade strategy deemed illegal by a U.S. appeals court allows the tariffs until October, anticipating U.S. Supreme Court appeal. Attorney General says Trump administration will appeal the order. France and Germany call for more pressure on Russia amid Putin's reluctance to meet Zelensky. The Ukrainian president urges leader-level security guarantees for Ukraine with U.S. involvement. And in sports, India's Satwik-Chirag and Chirag Shetty reached the men's doubles semi-finals of the Badminton World Championships in Paris. PV Sindhu loses in the quarter-final. Prime Minister Modi's visit to Japan has added fresh momentum to diverse areas of cooperation between the two nations. Day 2 is high on the technology quotient. Prime Minister Modi and his Japanese counterpart Shigeru Ishiba will ride a bullet train from Tokyo to Sendai, and they'll witness a semiconductor manufacturing facility. Their destination will be a major semiconductor facility in the Miyagi Prefecture. Semiconductors are the essential building blocks of modern electronics, acting as the hidden brains that make devices work. India and Japan's partnership has tremendous potential to offer the world reliable and credible alternatives to global supply chains of critical technologies. And day 1 of the PM's trip to Japan highlighted the deep-rooted diplomatic, economic and cultural ties between India and Japan, with Tokyo pledging to invest 10 trillion yen in India in the next decade. Both nations also agreed on a joint vision for economic and functional cooperation and put out a post-summit list of outcomes well into the double digits. DD India's Subhendu Ghosh reports from Tokyo.
Two Asian nations, India and Japan, not only share common cultural traditions, but share even a stronger commitment for global partnership. This commitment deepened further as Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Japanese counterpart Shigeru Ishiba chaired the 15th India-Japan Annual Summit in Tokyo. India and Japan also signed series of important documents in key sectors including clean energy and critical minerals. Apart from this, leaders also announced a new target of 10 trillion yen of private investment in India and Japan.
आज हमने अपने स्पेशल स्ट्रेटेजिक एंड ग्लोबल पार्टनरशिप में एक नए और सुनहरे अध्याय की मजबूत नींव रखी है। हमने अगले 10 वर्षों में जापान से भारत में 10 ट्रिलियन येन निवेश का लक्ष्य निर्धारित किया है।
Both the nations signed a document with a joint vision for the next decade that includes India-Japan Joint Vision for the Next Decade, Joint Declaration on Security Cooperation, Action Plan for India-Japan Human Resource Exchange, Memorandum of Cooperation on Joint Crediting Mechanism, MOU on India-Japan Digital Partnership 2.0, Memorandum of Cooperation in the Field of Mineral Resources, launch of the India-Japan AI Initiative, Joint Declaration of Intent on Clean Hydrogen and Ammonia, Memorandum of Cooperation on Cultural Exchange, MOU on Decentralized Domestic Wastewater Management, Memorandum of Cooperation in the Field of Environment Cooperation, and implementation of Agreement on LUPEX. PM Modi stressed that the partnership between India and Japan is not limited to New Delhi and Tokyo, Rather, these engagements will deepen through institutional cooperation between the states of India and the prefectures of Japan.
हम मानते हैं कि जापानी टेक्नोलॉजी एंड इंडियन टैलेंट आर अ विनिंग कॉम्बिनेशन। जहां हम हाई स्पीड रेल पर काम कर रहे हैं, वहीं नेक्स्ट जनरेशन मोबिलिटी पार्टनरशिप के अंतर्गत पोर्ट्स, एविएशन और शिप बिल्डिंग जैसे क्षेत्रों में भी तेजी से प्रगति करेंगे।
Japanese PM Shigeru Ishiba called for more high-skilled talent from India for the growth of Japanese economy.
Indian STEM talents are highly competent, but the Indian students coming to Japan to study are less than 2,000. We need more high-skilled talents from India for the growth of Japanese economy and for the vitalization of the local communities.
From free and fair Indo-Pacific to shared concerns towards terrorism and cybersecurity, India and Japan's partnership stands as a testament to mutual trust and deep-rooted shared values.
At the 15th India-Japan Annual Summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba presented an ambitious and expanded roadmap, a roadmap that takes into account geopolitical realities, emerging technologies, and demographic opportunities. With camera person Anil Thakur, Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in Tokyo.
And let's now take you across live to Shubhendu in Tokyo to find out more about, well, this trip itself seems to have been a blockbuster on day one, Shubhendu. It'll be a tough act to follow up really on day two, but just tell us in terms of how, day one, all the proceedings that took place, all the outcomes and the joint declarations that came out, how have they been received in Japan itself?
Hello, Gautam. Konnichiwa from Tokyo. Well, you're right. It's been really a milestone day as far as the relationship between India and Japan are concerned. What has been achieved is going to really lay the roadmap in many ways. The vision statement is made very clear about the next 10 years, whether it is investment, whether it is peoples of the two countries working together, technology sharing, and more. We saw through the day, on day one, the kind of connectedness that exists between India and Japan. If you look at the elements that Prime Minister Modi was part of, they're very welcome when the Japanese origin artists presented Indian dance form, cultural art forms. It was an important message also to talk about the degree to which not only is there a great degree of comfort in one another's culture, but also it is something that people would like to embrace. There is a willingness, there is an eagerness to engage with the other. With the engagement with the business leaders, both Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Ishiba made it clear that the leadership would like the businesses, the entrepreneurs to take the initiative and take the relationship between the two nations, their potential to the next level. But how do you achieve that as an isolated entrepreneur or a businessman? And that question is answered at the outcome of the annual summit, where a very, very ambitious and expanded vision statement has been put forth by both the leaders, whether we talk about the $10 trillion yen, which is a significant boost to areas which are of common interest, particularly emerging technologies, to talking about the workforce exchange plan, a more organized opportunities for people of India, the skilled workforce, for example, in particular, in Japan, with Japan welcoming them, saying that we do need them for our economy, and Indian skilled workforce getting better opportunities in Japan, in a friendly neighboring country. So in that sense, a 360-degree achievement panel, if you look at, on day one of Prime Minister's visit. Gautam?
Yes, and Japan working away in incremental steps from its hesitation to the past, where its defenses are concerned and defense ties are concerned as well. Very significant there as well. Just tell us about day two as well, because it's mostly about, it seems, technology, and India and Japan have been collaborating a lot in that field. But this time around, things are different. They're going to areas which were through the last few decades remained untouched largely.
Absolutely. Day two, Gautam, the very first engagement that Prime Minister has, it's an important one. He's meeting, in fact, the governors. So the executive head of the prefectures, they're like states in India, prefectures in Japan. So these governors have all come here in Tokyo to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi, an important outreach, not just in Tokyo, but to all the prefectures, to a more expanded geographical outreach in that sense when he meets the executive head of each of the prefectures this morning. That's the first engagement. And after that, it's an interesting trip that has been planned for Prime Minister Modi. Prime Minister and his Japanese counterpart are going to travel together in a bullet train. And they're going to travel about 350 kilometers to Sendai, that's Miyachi Prefecture, which is home to significant semiconductor facilities. And one of the major facilities, Prime Minister would be taking a tour of, a closer look at the manner in which things are done. In Japan, we know Japanese work culture and other things are also very interesting to study and observe. And Prime Minister likes this sort of first-hand exposure and experience of these new technologies that is set to transform India and the world in the times to come. And the ride in the bullet train is also important in symbolic terms. We know that Japan and India are partnering in the first high-speed rail network that is going to come up in India. So in that sense, day two is going to be more on the practical visuals of all that we can expect in the years to come in India-Japan partnership.
Just wanted to ask you that, when you talk about semiconductors, chips, they've become more synonymous with Taiwan. But just tell us about the kind of capabilities that Japan has in this particular field, which could be of benefit to India in its own semicon mission.
Gautam, we have to understand that Japan has significant manufacturing prowess. Yes, Taiwan is, of course, right at the top. But Taiwan, Japan also share a great degree of partnership. And if we just talk about Japan's presence in the semiconductor market, about 30% of the manufacturing in the world of semiconductors happens here in Japan. And interestingly, many of these manufacturing plants are associated with Taiwan. So Taiwan also, because of the limitations of geographical area, has partnered with countries, like-minded countries, to expand its own footprint. So in that sense, Japanese manufacturing, Taiwanese manufacturing, they go hand in hand. And when India engages so closely with Japan, it is also engaging in that sense with the best technology, best processes in semiconductor manufacturing in the world today.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we look forward to the day that the PM will have and more inputs from you as well. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Shubhendu Ghosh. Now, Prime Minister Modi has also told India-Japan Economic Forum in Tokyo that Japanese technology and Indian talent are a winning combination. The PM further said the world is not just watching India, it's counting on India. The next report by Shubhendu Ghosh deep dives into what happened during the India-Japan Economic Forum meeting in Tokyo, attended by top business honchos from both the countries, and Prime Minister Modi's inspiring address there.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister of Japan Shigeru Ishiba attended the India-Japan Economic Forum in Tokyo on Friday. Leading industry figures from India and Japan, including CEOs of the India-Japan Business Leaders Forum, participated in the meeting. In his address, PM Modi highlighted the success of the India-Japan Special Strategic and Global Partnership, in particular the bilateral collaboration in the fields of investment, manufacturing and technology. PM Modi explained the ties with Japan, which are strategic, powered by economic logic, and that India is the springboard for Japanese businesses in the global south.
India and Japan's partnership is strategic and smart, powered by economic logic. We have turned shared interest into shared prosperity. India is the springboard for Japanese businesses to the global south. Together, we will shape the Asian century for stability.
Highlighting the evolving scenario and challenges in the defense and technology sector, Prime Minister said that Japan is a tech powerhouse and India is a talent powerhouse, and both countries can collaborate in a constructive manner.
Japan tech पावर हाउस है और भारत एक टैलेंट पावर हाउस है। जापान की टेक्नोलॉजी और भारत का टैलेंट मिलकर इस सदी के टेक रिवॉल्यूशन का नेतृत्व कर सकते हैं।
The Prime Minister said that together both the nations can replicate the magic that has been created in the auto sector, in batteries, robotics, semiconductors, shipbuilding and nuclear energy as well.
सोलर सेल्स हो या फिर ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन, साझेदारी की अपार संभावनाएं हैं। भारत और जापान के बीच जॉइंट क्रेडिट मैकेनिज्म पर समझौता हुआ है। इसका लाभ उठाकर क्लीन और ग्रीन फ्यूचर के निर्माण में सहयोग किया जा सकता है।
PM reiterated the government's strong resolve to develop India and said that the efforts are being acknowledged globally.
इन रिफॉर्म्स के पीछे हमारा विकसित भारत बनाने का संकल्प है, हमारा कमिटमेंट है, कन्विक्शन है और स्ट्रेटेजी है, और विश्व ने इसे रिकॉग्नाइज ही नहीं, एप्रिशिएट भी किया है। The world is not just watching India, it is counting on India.
The report of the 12th India-Japan Business Leaders Forum, or IJBLF, was presented by the co-chairs of the forum to both leaders, highlighting the burgeoning partnerships between Indian and Japanese industry. Norihiko Ishiguro, chairman and CEO of the Japan External Trade Organization, announced various B2B MOUs signed between Indian and Japanese companies in a range of sectors such as steel, AI, space, education and skills, clean energy and human resource exchanges. With bureau inputs, Shubhendu Ghosh's report for DD India from Tokyo.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. The White House dismisses the suggestion that President Trump has been fooled by his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. And Donald Trump's move to end Venezuelan protections halted by an appeals court.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout हो गया.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, a divided U.S. appeals court ruled on Friday that most of Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal, undercutting the Republican president's use of the levies as a key international economic policy tool. The court allowed the tariffs to remain in place through the 14th of October to give the Trump administration a chance to file an appeal with the U.S. Supreme Court. Trump has made tariffs a pillar of U.S. foreign policy in his second term, using them to exert political pressure and renegotiate trade deals with countries that export goods to the United States. The tariffs have given the Trump administration leverage to extract economic concessions from trading partners, but have also increased volatility in financial markets. The U.S. Appeals Court said that the statute bestows significant authority on the president to undertake a number of actions in response to a declared national emergency, but none of these actions explicitly include the power to impose tariffs, duties or the like, or the power to tax. And earlier, U.S. Appeals Court has ruled that most of President Trump's global tariffs were illegal, stating he exceeded his authority under emergency powers. Now the U.S. President has responded, calling the ruling incorrect and asserting that all tariffs remain in effect. He warned that lifting them would harm American workers and manufacturers and pledged to defend his trade policies as essential to national strength. At the same time, the Trump administration has suffered another blow. A federal appeals court has blocked the Trump administration's efforts to end temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans living in the United States. A three-judge panel of the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals unanimously upheld a lower court ruling that maintaining temporary protected status for Venezuelans while TPS holders challenge actions by Trump's administration in court. A further appeal by the administration is likely. Spokesperson for U.S. Department of Homeland Security in a statement said, "The ruling delays justice and undermines the integrity of our immigration system. Temporary protected status is available to people whose home country has experienced a natural disaster, armed conflict or other extraordinary events. It provides eligible migrants with work authorization and temporary protection from deportation." Further, the U.S. has said it will not allow Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas to travel to New York next month for a United Nations gathering of world leaders, where several U.S. allies are set to recognize Palestine as a state. A State Department official said that Abbas and about 80 other Palestinians would be affected by the decision to deny and revoke visas from members of the Umbrella Palestine Liberation Organization and West Bank-based Palestinian Authority. Abbas had been planning to travel to New York for the annual high-level UN General Assembly at the UN headquarters in Manhattan. He was also set to attend a summit there hosted by France and Saudi Arabia, where Britain, France, Australia and Canada have pledged to formally recognize a Palestinian state. Abbas's office said it was astonished by the visa decision and argued that it violated the UN headquarters agreement. Now, Kyiv is engaged in a diplomatic push to try and bring to an end Russia's conflict, now in its fourth year, and to secure critical commitments from its partners to fend off any future invasion. President Volodymyr Zelensky urged allies on Friday to swiftly elevate talks on security guarantees for Ukraine to the level of leaders. Ukrainian leader also speaking at the official opening ceremony of the National Military Memorial Cemetery on Friday. Zelensky said he expected to continue talks with European leaders next week on commitments to protect Ukraine, adding that US President Donald Trump should also be involved.
What we want is these security guarantees from key European countries and the United States were supported by the European parliaments and the US Congress. Yes, we want legally binding security guarantees. We do not want another Budapest Memorandum or the Minsk agreements. Regarding the security guarantees, we are organizing the European track next week so that everyone understands clearly the architecture. Then, during a meeting next week, we want to connect with President Trump and tell him how we see it.
Zelensky also raised Trump's self-imposed deadline for deciding on new measures against Russia if President Vladimir Putin fails to commit to a one-on-one meeting with the Ukrainian leader. Ukrainian officials say Russia, which has continued attacking cities with missiles and drones and is pressing a battlefield offensive, has no interest in seeking peace. Later, Zelensky's chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, also held a meeting with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to discuss a need for pressure on Moscow to bring peace closer. France and Germany on Friday vowed to sever pressure on Russia over its war against Ukraine, threatening further sanctions if President Vladimir Putin failed to turn up for talks with Ukraine's leader. French President Emmanuel Macron has pledged to give continued push for tougher measures on Russia, and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said that the war in Ukraine could still last for many months, but Kyiv supporters are ready to continue their aid. Merz said that it seems clear there will be no meeting between Russian President Putin and Zelensky.
The coming days will be decisive, marking the end of the period agreed upon with President Trump and President Zelensky to secure initial meetings, and we will continue to exert pressure for additional sanctions to be adopted by ourselves, and we are ready for that, but also by the United States of America in order to force Russia back to the negotiating table, while at the same time maintaining our support. This war may last for many more months. We should be prepared for that. We are prepared to act in close coordination with the European partners, with the Americans, and also with the coalition of the willing. Emmanuel Macron has pointed out that there are 30 countries worldwide that are ready to help Ukraine and are doing so very practically. Keeping this coalition of the willing together is one of our urgent tasks. I want to say it once again.
And on the eve of a visit to China, Russian President Vladimir Putin has blasted Western sanctions as his country's economy teetered on the brink of recession, wounded by trade curbs and the cost of his war in Ukraine. Russia and China jointly opposed discriminatory sanctions in global trade, Putin said in a written interview with China's official Xinhua news agency published on Saturday. Putin will be in China, Russia's biggest trading partner, from Sunday to Wednesday in a 4-day visit that the Kremlin has called unprecedented. Putin will first attend the 2-day summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in Tianjin. The security-focused SCO or SCO, founded by a group of Eurasian nations in 2001, has expanded to 10 permanent members that now include Iran and India. Putin will then travel to Beijing to hold talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping and attend a massive military parade in the Chinese capital, commemorating the end of the Second World War after Japan's formal surrender. And Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko has urged the United Nations Security Council on Friday for more air defense systems following the latest deadly missile and drone strikes on her country.
President Zelensky spoke with the Secretary General yesterday to discuss the necessary steps to stop the killings. At the same time, alongside words of support, we value concrete action that both strengthen our defense capabilities and save human lives. Ukraine urgently requires additional air defense systems to protect our people, to protect our territory, as well as long-range strike capabilities to neutralize Russian military facility from which attacks are launched.
And on Russia's recent missile and drone strikes on Ukraine, the US told the UN Security Council that it undermines Russia's claims of seeking peace. US diplomat John Kelly warned that continued aggression could trigger economic consequences from Washington. He urged Russia to halt the violence and engage constructively to end the war.
The latest drone and missile attacks on Ukraine, which resulted in numerous civilian casualties and damage to residential areas, the offices of the EU delegation in Kyiv, and the building which houses the British Council, cast doubts on the seriousness of Russia's desire for peace. The United States calls on the Russian Federation to avoid these consequences by stopping the violence and engaging constructively to end the war. Russia must decide now to move toward peace.
Meanwhile, the United States is still working on a Russia-Ukraine peace summit. The White House has said that President Trump and his national security team continue to engage with Russian and Ukrainian officials towards a bilateral meeting to stop the killing and end the war. Now, as Washington intensifies a broader naval buildup in the southern Caribbean to target drug gangs in Latin America, a U.S. warship docked near the Panama Canal on Friday. 7 U.S. warships, along with 1 nuclear-powered fast attack submarine, are either in the region or are expected to be there soon, bringing along more than 4,500 sailors and Marines. U.S. President Donald Trump has said combating drug cartels is a central goal for his administration, and U.S. officials have told Reuters that the military efforts aim to address threats from those cartels. Stephen Miller, Deputy White House Chief of Staff, said on Friday that the military buildup was aimed to combat and dismantle drug trafficking organizations, criminal cartels, and these foreign terrorist organizations in the Western Hemisphere. Luis Fernando Camacho, the suspended governor of Santa Cruz and a prominent Bolivian opposition leader, was released on Friday from the high-security prison in San Pedro de Chonchocoro after nearly 3 years to serve house arrest. Camacho, who rose to prominence as a civic leader during the resistance that ousted former President Evo Morales in 2019, was detained in 2022. The opposition leader faces multiple legal challenges, including a trial for his alleged role in the 2019 coup d'etat as claimed by the ruling party. He also faces investigations for promoting a strike, public procurement issues, and alleged irregular personnel appointments in the governor's office. The prolonged detention of Camacho without a criminal conviction had drawn criticism from his supporters. In another crushing blow to the Shinawatra political dynasty, Thailand's constitutional court dismissed Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra from office on Friday for an ethics violation. 39-year-old Paetongtarn was the country's youngest prime minister and the sixth leader from the billionaire Shinawatra family to be forced out of office either by the courts or the military. In its verdict, the court said that Paetongtarn violated ethics in a leaked June telephone call, during which she appeared to kowtow to Cambodia's former leader Hun Sen when both the countries were at the brink of an armed conflict. The Constitutional Court ruled that suspended Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra failed to uphold prime ministerial standards in handling a sensitive border dispute. The decision leaves Thailand with only an acting Prime Minister and no clear successor. A new Prime Minister must be chosen from candidates nominated in the 2023 election, but most are disqualified or politically sidelined. The Parliament could vote as early as next week, with intense political negotiations now underway. Accepting the verdict, the former Prime Minister said that she had sought to safeguard the country's interests.
First of all, in paying respects to the judicial process, I accept the Constitutional Court's verdict. However, speaking as a Thai person, I would like to insist on my pure intention and true determination to save the country all along. The phone conversation that was leaked, I did not ask for anything for my personal interest.
Let's now take a look at some other stories making news around the world as well. Morocco has launched a pilot project at the Tangamet Dam aimed at slowing water evaporation while simultaneously generating green energy using floating solar panels. At the major reservoir near the northern city of Tangiers, thousands of photovoltaic panels have been installed to protect the water's surface from the sun and absorb its light to generate electricity. Protests broke out in Bandung, West Java city of Indonesia, with demonstrators clashing near large fires. The protesters were throwing burning projectiles as flames spread, engulfing a building. The unrest continued under heavy rain, with the protesters gathering throughout the night. Local authorities have not yet commented on the cause of the violence. Archaeologists near Caral in Peru have uncovered a 3,800-year-old sculpture of two toads. This discovery supports the theory that climate change, prolonged droughts, contributed to the collapse of ancient civilizations. Along with the sculpture, skeletal remains of malnourished individuals were also found, linking climate change to the decline of the civilization. And still to come on DD India News Hour. The 30th of August is observed as National Small Industry Day, a day that celebrates the pivotal role of micro, small and medium enterprises in shaping economies. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal says India is looking to diversify trade and increase domestic consumption while remaining engaged with the US over Donald Trump's tariffs.
Welcome to DD India, where a billion voices unite, connecting viewers to the stories that matter. India is not just another news channel. It's the international channel that puts the spotlight on the global south, bringing you stories from the heart of emerging economies, dynamic cultures, and transformative voices. As the international news channel of India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati, DD India delivers high-quality content from every corner of the globe, focusing on the stories that shape our future. We don't just report news. We connect you to India's voice in the global narrative, from current affairs to culture, from economic growth to sustainable development, and the ever-evolving world order. DD India gives you a comprehensive view of the world around us. Stay connected, stay informed, and embrace the stories that shape our lives. DD India. India's voice to the world.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy, and before we go any further, another look at our top stories. Prime Minister Modi begins the second day of his visit to Japan. He'll travel from Tokyo to Sendai on a bullet train with Prime Minister Ishiba. The Tokyo summit marks deepening India-Japan ties with joint declarations on defense, technology and sustainability. Trump's trade strategy, deemed illegal by a U.S. appeals court, allows the tariffs until October, anticipating U.S. Supreme Court appeal. The Attorney General says Trump administration will appeal the decision. France and Germany call for more pressure on Russia amid Vladimir Putin's reluctance to meet Zelensky. The Ukrainian president urges leader-level security guarantees for Ukraine with U.S. involvement. And in sports, India's Satwik and Chirag reached the men's doubles semi-finals of the Badminton World Championships in Paris. PV Sindhu loses in the quarterfinals. The 30th of August is observed as National Spawn Industry Day, a day dedicated to acknowledging the backbone of India's economy, the micro, small and medium enterprises. From powering exports to generating jobs, these enterprises are driving inclusive growth across the nation. Let's take a look at this report for more.
Micro, small and medium enterprises, better known as MSMEs, are the lifeline of India's economic engine. Globally, they account for 90% of businesses and nearly 70% of jobs. In India, the sector stands second only to agriculture in employment generation, creating millions of opportunities at low capital cost and complementing the growth of large industries. The resilience of India's MSMEs is reflected in numbers. Their share in the country's GDP has hovered close to 30% over the past few years, even bouncing back strongly after the COVID-19 pandemic. On the export front too, MSMEs contribute to nearly half of India's total shipments, showcasing their role in strengthening India's global trade footprint. The government has placed MSMEs at the core of its economic strategy. From the Udyam registration portal, which now has over 4.9 crore registered enterprises, employing more than 21 crore people, to flagship programs like PM Vishwakarma, PM EGP and Sfurti, the focus has been on financial support, skill building and market linkages. In the last financial year, initiatives such as the public procurement policy ensured that over 82,000 crore rupees worth of goods and services were sourced from small enterprises, giving a big push to grassroots entrepreneurship. Programs like RAMP, Champions, and collateral-free loans are further helping small industries scale up and compete in both domestic and international markets. With a budgetary allocation of over 22,000 crore rupees for 2024-2025, the Ministry of MSME continues to expand its support framework. From artisans and craftspeople to small manufacturers and service providers, these enterprises are being equipped to drive innovation and self-reliance. As India celebrates National Small Industry Day 2025, the message is clear. MSMEs are not just industries, they are engines of inclusive growth, fostering livelihoods and building the foundation of a self-reliant India. Bureau Report, DD India.
India's Law and Justice Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal has said that India is steadily positioning itself as a global hub for arbitration with a focus on establishing a network of credible arbitral institutions. Meghwal was addressing the first meeting of the India-Singapore Joint Consultative Committee established under the MOU on Cooperation in Law and Dispute Resolution, and this was in Singapore on Friday. Speaking on the occasion, the Law Minister highlighted that the MOU reflects the shared resolve of both the nations to deepen institutional cooperation in the field of arbitration and mediation. He noted that alternative dispute resolution has become central to India's legal reform journey. During the meeting, both the sides also shared best practices from their jurisdictions in the areas of institutional arbitration, mediation, and commercial dispute resolution through courts. India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal on Friday addressed the 17th CII Global MedTech Summit and also the valedictory session of the 20th CII India-Africa Business Conclave. The minister said that the PLI scheme is a critical tool to boost domestic manufacturing. He highlighted the importance of free trade agreements with various countries, which will open up new opportunities and new markets. The minister said that India was also talking to the US for a bilateral trade treaty. Fuzail Ahmed reports.
India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal on Friday urged industry to have bold goals for growth and to meet the aspirations of a vibrant India. Addressing the 17th CII Global MedTech Summit, the minister also spoke about trade agreement talks with various countries.
A government which is working with the advanced countries, with developed economies, to have better trading options, free trade agreements. We've already concluded Mauritius, Australia, UAE, UK. The 4-block EFTA will come into effect on 1st October, 1 month away. We are working with the European Union on overdrive. We are working with Eurasia, a bloc of many nations. Oman FTA should get sorted out in the next few weeks. Yesterday, the Qatar minister told me they want to start negotiations. Chile and Peru are going on. Of course, we are also talking to the US for a bilateral trade agreement.
In his address, Minister Piyush Goyal stated that India needs to secure supply chains and build for export markets. The minister urged the industry to invest heavily in domestic manufacturing and R&D to produce the next generation of medical devices in India. Minister Goyal noted that negotiations for a comprehensive free trade agreement with the EU, Mauritius, Oman, UAE, Peru and Chile are in advanced stages. Minister Goyal also said that India is talking to the United States for a bilateral trade treaty. Minister Goyal said that the PLI scheme is a critical tool to boost domestic manufacturing of high-value medical devices and reduce reliance on imports. Piyush Goyal also addressed the 20th edition of the CII India-Africa Business Conclave in New Delhi.
Sectors of cooperation like agriculture, food security, manufacturing and industrialization, the cooperative movement or self-help group movement, the potential to worked with each other on education, skill development, capacity building in terms of research and development, innovation, the startup ecosystem, capacity building in healthcare, pharmaceuticals, renewable energy, some of which our honorable ministers alluded to, provides such a wide spectrum of opportunities for mutual benefit.
Calling the Global South the true voice of the developing world, Piyush Goyal urged African countries to work with India at multilateral platforms like the WTO to create common objectives and influence global decision-making. Fuzail Ahmed's report for DD India.
India's index of industrial production recorded a year-on-year growth of 3.5% in July 2025. According to official data, this was driven by 5.4% growth in the manufacturing sector. Within the manufacturing sector, 14 of 23 industry groups at National Industrial Classification 2-digit level have recorded a positive growth in July 2025 over July 2024. The quick estimates of IIP stand at 155 against 149.8 in July 2024. In the industry group, HR coils and sheets of mild steel and flat products of alloy steel have shown significant contribution in growth. Based on use-based classification, top 3 positive contributors to the growth of IIP are infrastructure, construction goods, intermediate goods and consumer durables. Also, according to the data released by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, India's real GDP grew 7.8% in the first quarter of the financial year 25-26 compared to the 6.5% growth recorded during Q1 of FY 24-25. Nominal GDP has witnessed a growth of 8.8% in Q1 of FY 25-26. Agriculture and allied sector have observed the real gross value added growth of 3.7% as compared to the growth of 1.5% registered in Q1 of last financial year. Manufacturing and construction sectors have registered above 7.5% growth. Tertiary sector recorded 9.3% growth at constant prices compared to 6.8% in Q1 of FY 24-25. The government's final consumption expenditure registered 9.7% growth in nominal terms during the period mentioned over the growth rate of 4% in Q1 of FY 24-25. Gross fixed capital formation recorded 7.8% growth at constant prices compared to 6.7% in Q1 of FY 24-25. Now, the government of Nepal has issued a directive requiring all social media companies, both domestic and international, to register with the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology. This requirement extends to major platforms like Meta and X, as well as smaller online sites and content creators. The government has issued a 7-day deadline, and failure to comply could result in the deactivation of services across the country. The decision stems from the Social Media Use Management Directive 2080-BS and a 2024 Supreme Court ruling, both aimed at enhancing accountability and curbing harmful online content. Additionally, registration allows the government to tax revenues earned from Nepali users, ensuring fair economic benefit for Nepal. Now on to weather news. Floods triggered by heavy rainfall have thrown road connectivity out of gear in Jammu and Kashmir, with Poonch and Doda districts facing the brunt. Major routes, including the Jammu-Srinagar National Highway or NH44, have been damaged, bringing traffic to a halt. In Poonch, traffic carrying essential commodities through the Mughal Road has been suspended as NH44 from Udhampur to Srinagar remained closed on Friday. This closure followed the washing away of up and down tubes on the highway in the Sambroli area due to heavy rainfall. According to officials, restoration work is underway. And in Uttarakhand, water level of rivers in the state is on the rise due to continuous rainfall in the state. The State Emergency Operations Center in Dehradun advised district magistrates to take precautions to prevent any tragedy. Uttarakhand Police also issued advisories for the Chamoli and Rudraprayag districts as continuous heavy rainfall in the state has led to a dangerous rise in water levels in local rivers, including those in Chamoli and Rudraprayag districts, prompting evacuations for residents living near riverbanks. Chamoli police have alerted that river water levels have reached critical heights and have strongly urged residents living along the river banks to move to safer locations immediately. In Rudraprayag, water levels of the Alaknanda and Mandakini rivers increased significantly. Police and administration teams are actively informing the people to stay away from riverbanks and move to secure areas to avoid flood-related danger. The Indian Air Force has intensified relief efforts across northern Punjab and Jammu. B-17 and Chinook helicopters have conducted more than 55 sorties to extract stranded civilians, including personnel from the Indian Army and Border Security Force from inundated areas in Dera Baba Nanak, Pathankot and Akhnur sectors. Transport aircraft C-130 have also been deployed to facilitate the rapid movement of specialized NDRF teams into affected zones. The operations have enabled the rescue of 215 individuals and delivered over 7,000 kilograms of essential relief material in the affected areas in the past 3 days. The Defence Ministry said current efforts are concentrated in northern Punjab, where the situation remains most critical due to continued high water levels, which have hampered surface connectivity. Relief missions are being executed in close coordination with the Indian Army, Border Security Force, National Disaster Response Force and local administration to ensure timely evacuation and distribution of supplies. In Pakistan, villagers from Kasur district, thousands were forced to flee their homes as devastating floods swept through various regions. The mass evacuation is part of a broader crisis that has displaced more than 1 million people across the region this week. Pakistan is witnessing the worst flooding in the nearly 40 years as major rivers swollen by monsoon rains and water flows from India breached their banks. Floodwaters have now reached the outskirts of Lahore, the country's second largest city, and are threatening to submerge major towns. Now let's get to some more developments from across the nation as well. Well, the famous Nehru Trophy boat race set to take place on Saturday at Punamada Lake in Kerala. The annual event features long decorated snake boats racing through the backwaters, cheered on by thousands of spectators. The winning team receives a prestigious Nehru Trophy, celebrating Kerala's rich cultural and tradition. The Regional Tourism Conclave in central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh has entered its second day on Saturday. The event offers discussions on sustainable tourism and brought together policy makers, investors and influencers to explore niche tourism opportunities in Gwalior-Chambal region. Sports now, in India's top men's doubles pair, Satwik-Chirag Ranki-Reddy and Chirag Shetty exacted sweet revenge on Friday by defeating Malaysia's Aaron Chia and Wu Yik-So 21-12 and 21-19 in the quarterfinals of the BWF World Championship in Paris. The win avenges their loss to the same duo at the Paris Olympic quarterfinals. The victory guarantees Ranki-Reddy and Shetty a medal, their second at the World Championships. They previously clinched bronze at the 2022 edition in Tokyo, where they were ironically ousted by the same Malaysian pair in the semis. With this result, India's streak of winning at least one medal at every BWF World Championship since 2011 continues unbroken. Satwik and Chirag will now take on world number 11 Li Yu and Bo Yang Chen of China in their semi-final on Saturday. And in the Hockey Asia Cup, Team India began their campaign with a thrilling 4-3 win over China in their Pool A match at Rajgir. Indian captain Harmanpreet Singh bagged a hat-trick despite missing a penalty stroke, and Jugraj Singh scored once to lead India to victory. Underdogs China pushed India to the limit, first taking an early 1-0 lead and then bouncing back from 3-1 down to tie at 3-3. It's the ideal start for hosts India, who will be aiming to win the Asia Cup and clinch direct qualification to the FIH Hockey World Cup. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. Just scan the QR code on the screen and download the app. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.